Hello everybody, this is Project Implementation Methodologies. It's the penultimate video in the ERP implementation series, so session 7G. So methodologies of implementation. We're looking at the difference between the phased approach and the Big Bang approach. So the phased approach is a slower deployment, sometimes known as the incremental or waved approach. ERP rollout is done by functionality, in other words by a single module or by a division or region, and is kept in that area almost like a pilot project to start with. The firm's focus is on achieving function in one area with normal operations using the existing system elsewhere. So you could think of Nestlé's rollout as a phased approach by region, although in the USA it might be considered more of a Big Bang approach. And certainly the way Nestlé looked at it was that they used America as a pilot for what they then rolled out globally in other countries. The problem with the phased approach is that the rollout goes on much longer and staff start to get change fatigue. With a feeling of, will this ever end? You also need to have technology bridges built to the other operating areas that are operating normally at the old system, because there has to be a link between the two systems. So there's some time and expense in building those technology bridges. The benefit though is it's much less risky than the Big Bang approach. You aren't betting the company on this kind of approach. And for larger companies, going through a phased approach, what you might call it a get it right approach, over a longer period, is probably the right choice. The Big Bang approach, or where you directly cut over to the new system from the old one, so there is a date when you cut over and then that's it. So the old system is gone and the new system is in place. This is called the Big Bang approach and is suitable for smaller companies, small to medium-sized companies. And in this case you replace entire business processes and legacy systems in one go. Larger companies that used it in the past have often had very poor results, so it has been discredited in some respects, but it is possible to do well, but there has to be a lot of planning if you're a large company. Projects can be rushed and important details are overlooked in a Big Bang approach. Well, they can be. You have to guard against it. Staff can experience a sense of panic at so much change at once. But if done right, there's a greater return on investment possible this way than going the incremental approach. It generates momentum, so people feel that they are actually involved in quite a momentous change, but it's risky, and if in a big company going to a new system fairly untried is certainly betting the company. In an ideal world where everything worked, this does bring the best return. So cutover, what is it and the stages involved? Well, you're cutting over directly from the old system to the new one, and that typically happens at go live, but there are some steps before that. So the first thing you would look at is reviewing the schedule and critical path of the project's implementation. Then you validate the underlying platforms and have a technical lockdown to prevent any more changes. Discuss impact to the business before it happens, so contingency plans for different things that might not be able to happen on that day or that week. Obtain business unit approval so that everybody's agreed to the change going ahead at a certain date. Address final questions and concerns, and then obtain steering committee approval. That's the committee that we looked at in another session. Once they've given their approval, then you have a phase of overall testing that comes to an end at the end of that short green line on the left there. Then you plan and get ready for cutover. Executing cutover happens over a period, and then you have business ramp up going on after that. Finally, you hopefully end up with a steady state. Things you've got to do before going live. And under the proposed schedule and critical path, you look at the stress test results of running the system with the right amount of data and just seeing did it complete okay, did it do the right transactions. If yes, then you're a go for stress test. You review the cutover dry run results, where you've tested out the dry run procedure. If that's completed, then that's go. It's showing here some things in red. Conduct final pre-go live technical review, freeze legacy systems, and perform final data loads. Those, in this case, this was taken from a project. They weren't completed at that point. Hardware is ready to go. The operating systems are ready to go. Databases, yes. The ERP component, which at that time when I took this snapshot was mysap.com, it's now called just sap.com. That was go, and also the enabling technologies underneath, they were all go. So you think about these things and make sure that you're ready to go in all those areas and get confirmation from the process owners. So the impact to the business. In this case, you have a couple of plants and you will decide to shut down operations at the close of business on such and such a date. Freeze all the legacy systems, so lock out all users from all legacy systems. So here are some examples of legacy systems in this particular company. Communicate to the customers and partners, so your top 100 clients, customers, partners, etc., and tell them what's going on, and tell them that there will be no deliveries. You do that via phone and also via your website. No deliveries as of this date. Manual processes are put in place to handle urgent stock receipts. As a communication plan with details of who's responsible for what and informing who, and that goes over what or handles web, phone, account teams and mail. You then issue an order to stop processing in production, all invoicing and all receiving, all shipments and maintenance, all order entry and maintenance, all materials movements and maintenance, and all customer maintenance. All of that halts on a particular day, and the go live then is scheduled. All processing is migrated to SAP ERP. Maintain the lockdown on all legacy systems. Address exception processes and month end and quarter end processes, and then escalate the process. You get feedback from what came out of it. The steering committee needs to approve go live, so they will be looking for go live in these areas: financials, materials management, project management, supply chain management, sales and distribution, other business units. So there are a whole series of things there that have to be agreed, and there are a number of people that are involved in this, so they're listed on the right. So go live approvals and documentation. So you have partners lined up to support go live. So you'll have server and disk subsystem vendors, operating systems and database vendors, systems integrators, SAP might be on site, functional development partners, and if everything's ready, then you can start to sign off on things. So you set up a help desk, you're putting in place the training, etc. So this list shows who should be warned about go live. There is another approach called the franchising approach. It's a bit like the phased approach, but it's suited to a holding company. So best for a company group having very different business models. So you have a holding company has lots of different companies within it, but they are disparate in nature. They're not the same company. They're doing completely different industries. So this is what's called the franchising approach. You phase in ERP in one member of that franchise group, and as a pilot project, it isn't risky for the rest of the group. Use of one common ERP software across the group is unifying, so typically you would focus on SAP or Microsoft Dynamics or Oracle. The benefits of high-level business intelligence are still possible. Each member of the group has its own ERP instance. A business unit in member companies pilots the implementation. Then there is the on-demand approach, the use of software as a service. So you could, instead of doing that change and having all that in-house, shut down everything in-house and move everything to the cloud. So you could do that with SAP Business by Design or one of the other cloud-based providers, using SAP packages running on something like Amazon Web Services, for example. This is ideal for small to medium-sized organizational ERP projects. It results in faster implementation because there's no on-premise installation required. Upgrading is easier because it's performed by the vendor, and they typically will not allow you to have customization, so that upgrades are easy to do. You can have cheaper upfront costs, but there is a monthly subscription, so you're transferring capex to opex really when you're doing this. Company business processes must work the way the ERP works, so you transform the way you work to the way the ERP works. This on-demand approach requires firms' data to be off-premise, and there is a security and reliability issue there which needs to be considered before going ahead with this kind of approach. So why do projects fail? The implementation risks. It's less because of technical failures and more because of problems of people, or failure to inform people. Failure to share a vision and rally the troops by top management. Projects may lurch to a halt, or worse, begin a slow and steady demise. Subpar implementation change efforts by partners or consultants can also be a risk. Inadequate training or layoffs during implementation. Employees using workarounds, sabotaging the system's accuracy. So if the people start to believe that the figures that the ERP system isn't giving you are wrong, then that's a problem. It will start to mean that people will try to frig the system to get their order delivered when it should be. So you should manage your projects of this type within your firm's propensity for risk, and if you have a high risk strategy, then you're much more likely to go nearer to a big bang approach and go on from there. But it's the human factor that causes an ERP project to fail. It's important to handle the human factor. So what we have here is an approach to risk. So there are dimensions of time, internal cost, external cost, the amount of change going on, and the return on investment. You can see a balanced approach, shared effort by both the company and the ERP vendor, gives quite a good return in that respect. Certainly the change level is high, you get a return on investment that's high. The others all give a return on investment that's medium, and there are various reasons for that in there, which I'm not going to explain. I'm just going to leave you to have a good look at it. And so that's it for this briefing, post-implementation methodologies. There's one other in the series after this one. So thank you very much.